Hello and welcome to the Association Talking Heads. I'm delighted to welcome today Caroline Stockmann, who's the Chief Executive Officer of the Association of Corporate Treasurers, a position she's held since 2017. Prior to this, Caroline was the Chief Financial Officer at the British Council, and before that, Save the Children. She's got 25 years experience in senior finance, commercial and strategic posts at a number of commercial organisations such as Unilever, and has spent much of her career working overseas. She also tells me she's an avid bell ringer. My name is Claire Wormsley and I'm the co-founder of the Global Conference Network, which runs the Association Excellence Awards, and founder of the Media House, which delivers training and consultancy for associations. I'd like to first talk about the impact of COVID-19 on your members. Obviously, debt, cash and liquidity have been some of the biggest issues facing companies. What have you done as an association to support your members?
So absolutely, liquidity has been at the forefront of all treasurers' minds, and including that, one of the biggest challenges has been cash forecasting, not only at the very outset of COVID, of course, when it was kind of clear for some organizations that revenue, it was going to be zero. But then as things progressed, it became such a mixed model, very, very difficult to predict what was going to happen. And as it's a global problem for international companies, even more of a problem. And for those who found difficulty in accessing, say, the government schemes as well, in certain industries, had more issues with that than others. That's been a real challenge, as you say. So what we have done throughout is communicate, really. We have continued or even emphasized CPD more than ever before, whether in the form of articles online or in our the Treasurer magazine, which we very quickly pivoted to be a Black Swan edition in April. And so we changed our plans totally and focused on the key issues for treasurers. We've also, throughout our virtual events, which we again brought in very, very quickly, the content has been around supporting our members. We've had a COVID-19 newsletter that goes out regularly. At first it was weekly and then it became bi-weekly, covering all the topics that were necessary, keeping people up to date with everything that was going on. And we'd hold, clearly we hold our different calls with our treasurers in our different groups, in what we call our regional networks in the UK and around the world, but also our FTSE 20 group we would be chatting with regularly. And we also created a group to chat with the sell side. So our members service providers, the banks in particular, and other financial institutions, so we could update them on where things were so that they could get a better understanding of the challenges for treasurers and therefore support them more effectively. In amongst all of that, you have, of course, LIBOR and Brexit, and LIBOR is in fact the bigger impact on treasurers than Brexit, generally speaking. And that's something, again, we've had numerous webinars, sessions advising, supporting, keeping people up to date. Also globally, as we look to the different reference rates that are being brought in around the world. So it's not just that LIBOR, which, everyone comes across. It's even in your payment terms, if you bought something on credit, it's all based on LIBOR, so it's everywhere. And the fact that it's not being changed to one thing, but it's being changed to different things depending on whether you're in the UK, the US, the rest of Europe, etc. So those are some big challenges, and we've really just been trying to support our members throughout. So yes, that's what we've been doing.
You actually do more communicating now than you did before we were all more virtually orientated.
In some ways, yes, we've always been focusing on communication, but because it is so easy to reach out to people virtually, I think there's probably been more, and we've had more reach, certainly, and we've had a lot of international interest where people previously couldn't attend, say, a conference. They could attend the webinars, but now they've got a lot more content easily available. And I think probably because we were so proactive early on, and thanks to the team for that, people felt, oh, this is a trusted organization, this is somebody who's going to help us, and wanted to be part of it. So I think, yes. And I think the communication is different. As everyone says, when you're on the different Zoom calls with people, it's a window into their house. You get to know their pets. You get to know things about them, caring for an elderly parent, whatever it happens to be. And you're also experiencing that with your other external relationships. So the whole community is in some ways getting closer together, whilst there are challenges like being isolated, etc., etc.
You mentioned your virtual events, and I know from the Association Excellence Awards that you have some real corkers, really fantastic events. How's that work, pivoting them to virtual?
Well, yeah, it was, as they say, a journey.
Yeah.
We wanted to do something quickly. We were going to hold our major conference in May, so we turned around and went virtual and held our first fully virtual conference in May, and that was our International Treasury Week, and that attracted about 3,000 people from 80 some countries around the world. So we consider that to be a success, and we were on a platform that worked well. Was nice to look at and so on, but didn't have all the networking capabilities that we'd really like, nor the analytics for our sponsors and supporters to see who was attending what, the preferences, etc., etc. So whilst we did that, and we also put on our Festival of Treasury Transformation in July, which again, similar numbers, around 3,000 from 90 countries. As well as doing that, our team researched 100 different options. Wow. And we decided to go with the kind of the Rolls Royce, I suppose, of platforms. It's a US platform called Engages, and we used Dawson Walker as a marketing kind of middle person to deal with Engages, because they're a different time zone, but also be on the front end looking at the look and feel and working with us to get it right. So it's a system that when you go into it, it looks like you're entering. It's familiar. It looks like you're entering a conference hall. There's an avatar of me welcoming you, and we change it for the different conferences. Obviously, when we have our Middle East conference, I'm in my Middle East dress, and so on and so forth. So we really tailor to the particular event, and within it, people can have direct chats. They can have group chats, video calls, without having to go out of the system. So it's very, very easy for people to network. And of course, there was a bit of a slow build to that, because people at first are just popping in while they're doing their emails, and we got more and more engagement. We found that we had a conversion from registration to attendance of 82%, generally speaking, throughout events, which is pretty good, I think. And then when we got to our annual dinner, I just wasn't going to give up. I said, we're not going to let COVID be. We've done this annually for 20 some years now, and people need something. So how are we going to do it? We called it Not the Annual Dinner. We had some great speakers, including I interviewed Louis Theroux, who was just really, really fascinating. His Tales of Tatiana the Baboon, amongst other things. We had a cultural anthropologist who was fascinating, talking about the re-entry after the shock, the culture shock of the whole crisis. We had the Archbishop of Canterbury, who is one of our members. Actually, he's a treasurer and a bell ringer, by the way. So Justin joined us, which was great. And we had David Mead, the Northern Irish mentalist and TV presenter. And he did 2 mentalist tricks live with volunteers on the night, which were just stunning. You just can't work out how he does it. But between all those sessions, we use Zoom technology as well as the Engages platform. The Engages platform looked nice. You came in, you were at your dinner tables, but then what we used the Zoom for was to break people out into 3s. So they joined a table of 9, and then in between the sessions, they were rotated around in 3s. So they'd have 5 or 10 minutes to chat. As you would at a dinner table, you probably speak just to the people on either side of you, but then we'd mix it up. So there's over 300 meetings in that evening where people were, and we had engineers in the background. They were moving people around. Basically, and people said things like, it's the best night I've had in so long, and there was one little hitch we had, to be honest. One group, and it was my group, we didn't get moved into our 3s. There was something stalled on one of the engineers' laptops, apparently. So while this was happening, we weren't seeing one of the sessions. But everyone was all jumping in. I was saying, oh, I'm sorry, I need to find out what's happening. Apologies for this. And they were all like, hey, that doesn't matter. This is great. We're seeing everyone. And everyone was invited to wear black tie. We gave them backgrounds that they could choose from, the chandelier or the you know, bubbles or whatever it happened to be. And it was just a great evening. And the thing is, this year, November, can we plan for our normal 1,500 people at the Grosvenor House Hotel? Will people, we have to plan it now. So we're going to do a bigger and better virtual event, because we need certainty, and we need to give people certainty out of uncertainty, because people can't be dealing with this back and forth, toing and froing, not sure. It's just really difficult psychologically for people.
It sounds like a really amazing event, you know, really impressive. But can I ask, I mean, financially, did it, you know, is it sustainable? I mean, obviously costs are much lower, but is the revenue the same? And I know events contribute considerably to the running of the association. What impact does it have running into it?
So it had a huge impact in 2020. We lost a third of our income, and that means we can't cover all our fixed costs. It also means cash flow problems. So we got a Sybil's loan from the government, and sorry, we're going to have a bit of dog barking, the doorbell, but you know, hey, that's the virtual world, isn't
I've
it?
locked mine in the kitchen, yeah.
Well, yeah, no, difficult, this one, wherever you put her. And the family are not coming to the rescue, so we'll just have to be patient. But yeah, so losing my train of thought here. But yeah, we lost a third of our income. But looking forward, our plan for the next 5 years, it is sustainable. You just need to look at things differently. And 2020, the main issue was we were caught unawares, of course, you know, it happened. And then just before our major income earner, which was our annual conference in May. So when that happens, and when people are a bit nervous at first, the sponsors, etc., about you know, what will be a virtual event, and thinking also in their minds, they were thinking, oh, it's all going to be over soon. They didn't engage as much as we would have liked, and now they're engaging, because and we've got our virtual event in May, our major conference happening, and those who had waited at first are also joining, and our co-lead sponsors have been great. They'd stuck with us, so it really helped. But it is sustainable, but it's just a different model, and it's not and it's a much tighter model, because people don't pay as much for virtual events. I think things may change over time, though, as people see that there's a great benefit for inclusion, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds also an immense amount of work putting that together. Tell me about how you've supported your team. I mean, it's been a stressful time for everybody. Have you found that you've done things differently, both for your members, but particularly for the team who work for you?
Absolutely. So we've done all sorts, really. We have a staff meeting twice a week, just to touch base with everyone, to keep us connected. My SLT, weekly, we would have a session that was just on how are we and how is our team. And the various teams were also doing similar with their sub-teams, if you like. We had sessions where we learned about meditation. We had a session with a Buddhist nun. We have had fun stuff going on. We've done quiz nights, people have done escape rooms. We've got a move club on Strava that we do. We've got a book club where we meet and rotate around, the usual thing for a book club, I guess. But things that will bring us together. We have a fireside chat, or now it's turned into our summer or spring kind of outing, if you like. So we use Teams chats, the whole trail of them, to put things in. I have a Monday mix that I do. It's got maybe about 5 YouTube videos on it, of something that's high energy that people can just tune into Monday morning, because we identified Mondays are quite difficult for everyone. Yeah, we've got a wiki where we put lots of content. We've got loads of content on our website that our staff can access, and on our career hub too, and also our members and others can access a lot of the material. We've been producing guides that are going to be issued soon on a lot of the softer skill areas, and I've done podcasts. So last year, every week on a Friday, a new podcast would come out on basically around strategic influencing, but a lot of that is about yourself, including your positivity, your resilience, those kinds of topics. So they came out, and I launched a new series in February, which focuses specifically on some of those areas and some new areas during COVID or during a crisis. So they're only 5 to 7 minutes long, so very easy listen for people, and they're on Spotify and BuzzFeed as well as our website, so anyone can access them and just pick up, because I'm a trained coach, which we didn't mention before, and it's really from my coaching learnings over the years and putting them into practice, I try to condense, some what I found to be real nuggets into a short space of time for people to help others. So yeah, with members, we've had social sessions with our panels in the Middle East, Africa, Asia, also Ireland, Southwest, different groups that we have. Our London group, we've run a session on well-being and resilience for everyone. And in all of our events, we have sessions relating to softer skills and to diversity and inclusion and to mental well-being. We had our major event in October, a timeout zone, where people could go and actually do some meditation led by a professional, or they could listen to music, they could do crosswords, Sudoku, and trying to simulate, on the one hand, the missing commute into work, so you can prepare yourself, if you like, get your mind in the right place, and also have a bit of time off from only doing work, but also just that kind of mindfulness, bringing that in and trying to help our members with that.
Gosh, it sounds like you've got a real sort of platform and creative options of supporting them. I think one of the words actually I'll take away from last year was resilience as being one of the most important things for family, for work. It's sort of
absolutely, and learning is really important. I believe, there's probably more, but I believe in the theory that there's 5 real builders of resilience, and they're learning, giving, being in the present, social contact, and activity. And so it's good for us to be active. And then on top of that, you can also think about sleep, water, healthy eating, and so on and so forth. But focusing in on learning, not too much, we don't always want lots of extra pressure in these times, but actually doing something different that your mind is learning with, even if it's reading an article or doing something different. Like the other night, I had a Milton Brown calligraphy session, which is quite fun. But that is really good for your mind and really good for your resilience. It builds you up. And we, of course, our membership is based on qualification, and most of our qualifications, fortunately, were online, and all of our assessment it's remote invigilation. So it was great because we had as many, if not more, people sitting our exams than before, and they could trust us. We know that there have been other organisations that either couldn't get online quick enough and they struggled to do that, but did it eventually, and good for them. But we do hear of other organisations that just let down their students and said, sorry, you can't sit the exams. And then they did it a second time. And that's really stressful for people in this situation who are all prepared to do an exam and then they can't do it. It is the most horrendous thing. So the other day we had an away day, which we chose different backgrounds and tried to go into different rooms of our houses where possible. But we had a great away day. And one of the guest speakers, we invited a student. And I think we were almost in tears, all of us, just listening to her about her journey and how people hadn't believed in her, but she was determined, and how we'd helped her. And yeah, it was very moving to hear.
Gosh, I mean, obviously that next generation that have been impacted, I think you're completely right, that supporting them is just so important. And you've obviously got the brand, which has kept you strong through this, but also your quick move to technology. But I also think the way you've supported and acknowledgement of well-being is really impressive. If you were to think about one thing which you would like to sort of take away from this year as a positive, as a positive thing which has happened, which you can take forward, what would it be?
I mean, there are so many things actually, when you consider it. I think at the heart of it possibly is that teamwork and how we can be closer together than ever before. And funnily enough, the way that we've worked and the way we've got closer by being more open and transparent, and I've been absolutely transparent with everyone in the team about our decisions, including when we went on to 80% pay. I asked people, and that teamwork they supported. They were loyal to us and said, well, they volunteered, which was really, really impressive. But I've always, in terms of leadership, I've always believed in that style of being open, being consultative, being decisive as well, though, because that helps people. So it's not all being wishy-washy, but actually being very human and also being vulnerable. And I know in the past some people struggle with that, and it's not exactly the standard corporate approach. And I've always stood by it, held by it. So this year, it actually made me feel that people actually understood finally what I've been trying to communicate for a long time, and that there is real value in that empathetic leadership style, and real value in in that mixture of really caring and listening to other people, but also being decisive and knowing when you have to make decisions, because you need that, because people need it. They're looking to you to lead. So I think it was all around that teamwork and the innovation, just the fact that through this time we could stand back and think, how are we going to do this? What could you do? And even thinking now about returning back to work, we were thinking about, obviously it's going to be different, and listening to Jitske Kramer, who was our cultural anthropologist, and coming out into the, you know, the re-entry after the crisis into the next normal, as I like to call it, because it will constantly be changing, of course. But there's an issue there that we might revert back to what we had before and lose the benefits of what we've learned. So when we've been brainstorming and thinking about, and just trying to avoid the term back to the office, because that implies we're doing the same as before. So thinking about going, how we're going to work in the future, we're, like many other people, thinking of more flexibility and more ability to work from home. And initially we were chatting about coming in for a compulsory day or two a week, where then we'd have our meetings, this, that, and the other. And as I was listening to everyone talking about this in our SLT, it suddenly dawned on me. I said, let's just stand back. What is it that you're missing from a virtual meeting? And the things that people say they're missing is, they're missing the water cooler chats. They're missing when you're sat doing your emails, which people are saying, well, I might as well do them at home. But actually, when you're sat doing them at work, you overhear something from your neighbour, and then you say, oh, actually, did you know, blah, 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 blah. And you start a conversation, or you decide you're going to have a huddle around something, or you're going to brainstorm something. Those are the things that are more difficult to do virtually. But a bog standard meeting, it's fine virtually. In fact, it's sometimes more democratic, more inclusive. So what we're now thinking about is, okay, what would we do when we were together? Now, and will we go to the pub for lunch? Will we have a social at the end of the day? What are the things that we can't do virtually? And make sure those are the things when we meet together that we do, and that we don't waste that precious time together on things that we could do equally well virtually.
That sounds a really positive way of looking at it, thinking about the genuine things which can't be replicated virtually, and making the most of them when you do get together. Caroline, it's been great to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. Really interesting to hear how the Association of Corporate Treasurers, your team and your members have responded. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire.